Kia ora and welcome to Constellations and All That. I'm your host, Tracy Cartwright, and together we will be exploring the world of family constellations with facilitators and clients from around the world, looking at different perspectives and experiences in the work, having a cup of tea and just chatting with some friends around their experiences in constellations. We'd love for you to join us. I hope that you enjoy this series as much as I have loved making it. Kia ora everyone, welcome to Constellations and All That. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Natalia Bullon. I think I said that right. We just were practicing before we started. But I'll allow you to please pronounce that correctly for me and to introduce yourself, Natalia, so that the listeners or the viewers know a little bit about who you are, and whatever you feel like sharing would be amazing.
Well, first, thank you, Tracy, for inviting me. I've seen right from the beginning how you started all this initiative, and I think it's wonderful that you bring this integration of many type of approaches in family constellations and everything else that supports spiritual growth into our showcase in this way. So, well, amazing initiative. Thank you for inviting me. And my name is Natalia Bullon. Well, I'm originally from Peru, but I came to New Zealand 8 years ago, around 8 years. And since then, I've been dedicated to continue family constellation workshops, individual sessions, but I'm a lecturer at university, and I also a research scientist in private industry. So yeah, a little bit of many things at the same time with, let's say, supporting people in their journeys.
One of the questions I had in mind to talk with you about, and you've already mentioned it, that you work in the sciences. So how do you find, I'm just going to jump straight in here, how do you find the constellations and explaining it to your sciencey friends?
Ooh, yeah. Well, I should confess that I have to start that family constellation is not something that is scientifically proven in the hard scientific way, let's say, like where you see observable correlations between one thing and the result. We can start discussing here what is science, blah, blah, but that's not the point. But I start saying that it is not 100% conclusive at least in the scientific literature, about the effect of family constellations in the feeling of wellness or well-being, because it's not one thing that creates or causes that effect. Could be many things together, or two or three. So when I say this to people, because they come to me like, oh, she has this sciencey background and she does family constellation, it must be because there is something there. And straight right from the beginning, I say, look, if you check in Google, actually, you see that it's mentioned as pseudoscientific. It's a pseudoscience, and because it's not 100% correlated or observable or attributable to one causal relationship. And after that, I start elaborating on what is posited as the mechanism of how family constellation works from a very, very systematic and, perhaps boring way of how I see things from the science perspective. So I say that to my sciencey friends, I say that the way we interpret reality is not only because of our genetic disposition, because of our culture, because of our physicality. The way we interpret reality is because of many things that come together. And perhaps moving one little aspect in how we see this reality can help to have a wider vision of how we interpret reality. And I would say that small part is the power of the mind, which I posit that's why we work in family constellation.
And as you do that, I'm watching you with your fingers, and I was just reminded, it takes just when you're using binoculars or you're
lining up the sights of a rifle or something like that, you know, if target practice. And it's just the tiniest, minutest little movement, right? And it makes all the difference. That was just like, as you were doing that with your hands, I was like, yeah, it is just sometimes you just need to tighten that up or loosen that up. Or,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that more and more I hear people that they are looking for the big solution. And I think the antidote to this vision is that sometimes you just need a little tweak. It's like the movement of the butterfly, right? That creates this wide phenomena of even, I don't know, a storm in another country when it started. So we don't know really like the impact of one little thing. And I like to mention that because it's not like we can create, you will come and then you will come out completely different. Might be, but could be that just that little thing that changed today, in 2 years, you come to a session with Tracy, and then all of a sudden it makes sense. And it's not because of that particular space in time in that moment. It was because there were many other things that contributed to this final moment.
yeah, many more layers moving in between all of that, hey?
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I guess the epigenetic side of things, yeah,
Yeah.
that is science in that, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, still, I think there is quite a lot discussed on observable phenomena correlated with it, which is physical phenomena. I mean, what we can actually tell when we check through the microscope, or when we see the chromosomes and genes. When you see genes, you just see a series of bases, nitrogenous bases, CGTA, repeated CGTA. So when we see genes, we only see CGTA all the time, and how they are packed together to create genes. It's not that we see a gene that encodes, I don't know, resentment. It's not such that.
Yeah.
So it's, and from gene to protein expression, and then from protein expression to the actual functionality of the human being, it's a wide process. And then just because that person, let's say, has a particular protein, doesn't mean that will behave in a particular way. So just because a protein is expressed, and doesn't mean anything. Just the way that just because we have some bacteria present in our body doesn't mean that we are sick. It depends on the on and off of particular genes or particular substances in our body. So the same way, just because our genes encode or proteins are expressed, doesn't mean necessarily something. Epigenetics is, I think, is helpful because it kind of supports kind of a wider vision of understanding. Yes, we carry on certain, possibly trauma, but it's not 100% conclusive. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating though. It fascinates me. The imprints that run down through the generations, particularly, I think, because we know that in the female line, where all of us are in our mother's ovaries, in our grandmother's wombs. And then there's the parts of us that come down through the father line, which they've done quite a bit of study with animals and around the effects and how many I think it's about 7 generations, isn't it? Where there's quite a
I'm not exactly sure. I always try to go to the root of all this information about the mitochondrial DNA and what is transferred from mother, grandmother. But I'll say in my reading, at least, I haven't found something like really accurate in terms of how many generations or what is really inherited from our mother, 100% or 100% from our father.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is, I'll say in my own interpretation, again, it might be completely wrong if I talk to a geneticist, but it's like nothing that can be 100% pointed, like this comes from my mom. because there is a step in recombination of DNA, actually in meiosis, and the way there is a crossover of genetic material that creates the person who we are, and there is none other Natalia in the whole world that is exactly the same. And it's a very, very marvelous, like fascinating step in the human evolution. And after that, you can trace back that only comes from mother. So I would hesitate. I would be very hesitant to believe that there is something that we can pinpoint 100%.
For those who don't know, you and I have done some work together. We've held a couple of retreats together alongside with Joe, Amarine Palate. Yeah, sorry, Joe. It's always such a, I have to really stop and think about what her last name is. Know well, but her last name confuses me. And you're based in Auckland.
Correct.
And you're based at the Buddhist Centre in Mount Albert. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where you run your one-on-ones and your workshops?
Yes, correct.
Beautiful, beautiful. And when we were working together, you did quite a bit of, because you're of the Buddhist faith, Buddhist following, yeah. So that how influences your work a bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Buddhism influences quite a lot. I mean, Buddhism is a fascinating spiritual tradition and religion that try to release us from suffering. I mean, where Western approaches says that you have to dig into your own history to find out who you are, Buddhism posits you don't have to dig that far because you are free already in a way. You just need to rediscover that essence that is within you. And when you discover that essence through basically meditation, then you can be completely free of suffering. So it's completely, like what you call radical compared to Western approach. And in my experience as a Buddhist practitioner, I think makes your life like very easy in a way. You are less important, and your own interpretations of reality might start feeling like, yeah, I might be completely wrong in my own interpretation of my mother, my father, my own story. And it might be that all these years I've been suffering in my own hands. So why? That's the Buddhist approach. So always question about your own interpretation, not putting too much effort on who to blame about particular events.
Yeah, it was fascinating because the three of us had such, we were different in our styles, and yet it melded really beautifully together.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful venue that you have down there.
Yeah, well, here is the Kagyu. Well, in Buddhism, we have many lineages: Kagyu, Nyingma, Jigaluk, and also other stream is Zen tradition. But the Kagyu lineage, which I belong to, they are called Kagyu because we are very focused on meditation, and so a big deal of our time and practice is to meditate. And most of us, we don't like it because, well, or we have an idea that meditation is what we are taught in the West, that is going somewhere where you can find peace, I suppose, like a holiday, which is great for some people. But at some point in my own life, I thought like, I mean, I have these holidays for half an hour and then I come back to my miserable life. And then what's the point if I'm always, escaping during meditation, until I discover meditation in the Buddhist approach, which basically says you don't need to go somewhere else. You can be where you are, even if you're sick or you lost someone or you are suffering, you can be where you are with who you are at all times. You just have to learn how to be without running away from your reality. And that really completely changed my perspective, because then I said, then I don't need to escape from my life. Like Pema Chodron in her books, she always talk about feeling okay while life falls apart. And basically that's what Buddhism says. You don't need to escape from your life when it's falling apart. You just need to learn to be. And apparently we don't know how to be.
And have you got any tips on how to be?
Well, it's hard. The Buddhists say they always say, oh, you just have to be like it's just like, you know, easy. But I think it's very hard. And it comes from practice. And we dedicate quite a lot of time to practice when we are happy, when we're sad, when we are elated, or when we lost someone or we lost our health, because we need to learn that independently of our own experiences, whether we are 100% or 0%, then we just need to be with our own mind. So we start just tiny periods, 10 minutes, morning, afternoon, and night, sitting with our own breath, just contemplating our own breath, and thoughts will come completely. It will be like very haphazard and chaotic. But if the person really is persistent and just sits with all this mess coming and going, and only can be with all this mess, then the person will be more equipped in the future with just being there with all the chaos. 10 minutes, and then along the way, start building up more time, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then the person will develop some insight from that.
Fantastic. And I think what a great, just starting with your breath rather than trying to, I think people think that, I can't meditate, I have to control my mind. I find walking, and that focuses me on breathing, more so for me than sitting. And maybe I just need to sit and be in that breath for 10 minutes, because it's like my mind goes all over the place, and I guess that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I started, like way back in 2012 in Chile, when I was living in Chile. I started in a school. It was not a Buddhist school, but it was more like a philosophical school, Western, but they started to provide some teachings on meditation. And the first hour was meditation. And I used to have like a real normal job, like 8 to 5, and then every Wednesday going to this school. And the moment the gong started, the moment I fall asleep for the whole session. And it was really like, I try so hard to not sleep, because I was like, oh my God, I can't meditate. And I was like getting like more anxious because I couldn't do it. And once I talked to the teacher, to Patricia, and then she said, the good thing about all this that is happening to you is that you realize you're really tired, and perhaps you just need to sleep during the whole hour. And that's what your body needs, but you don't know until you actually stop. And yeah, of course, I was a freak, like non-stop, busy until 5 p.m. Of course, if I stop, I would be like dead, So it was good to see that I was not tired when I didn't have the time, but I was actually very tired.
Yeah.
So she gave me like, yeah, if you want to sleep, just sleep. So I slept, the whole hour.
Oh, there's no resistance there. I can sleep. Great. And then you can start moving through that, right?
Yeah, and that moment was like, yeah, I'm really tired. But in that case, I dig very deeply. I was like, why am I struggling? I'm fighting so hard. I can make a plan based on my tiredness and maybe have a nap before coming to the session. But if I keep fighting, I won't go anywhere, So part of me relax, and Buddhists, they say that great deal of learning is to learn to relax to who we are. And that's the first step. Yeah. And yeah, of course, when we see it for the first time, everything comes, and then it's like, oh no, no way, I'm crazy. I can even focus on 1 second. And whoever has meditated for a long time will say that's very normal. And some people, they also think like they are already enlightened, and they have this, they are in this state of they gone somewhere else in,
Yeah.
and they genuinely believe they are enlightened. But the reality most of the time is that they just went to bed during the meditation session, and they just went to a place, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
they were not really present. They just went somewhere. So part of the Buddhist approach, at least, is to we deal with 2 types of mind: very agitated mind, which was my mind was very active, very busy, very wild. And there is another type of mind that is very like they call it like in stupor, like very drowsy, and it tends to go to sleep every time. And the human mind seems to fluctuate between those 2 extremes. And
Yeah.
the Buddhist approach is to, once you realize your mind is very wild, you can do something. For instance, you sit and your mind is very wild, so they recommend, for instance, you open your chest, you try to intentionally breathe deeper, some more air, so that brings more settlement in your chakras. Open your eyes a little bit, because they are partially closed, but you open your eyes a little bit. Sometimes put more blankets so you feel more like secure. And if it's too wild, maybe stand up, breathe some air, and then come back to sit. If your mind is drowsy and you're falling and you're going to bed, then have like a towel, wet towel next to you, put in your head, open the eyes, again, relax the muscles, move the posture. But that can only take place when the person realizes falling asleep and then can correct the posture. So most of the time is bringing you to the middle way, which we talk about in Buddhism, middle way. So too drowsy, middle way, too lousy, middle way. And that creates the practice.
Beautiful. Do you use that? Do you use any form of meditation in your constellations?
In the sessions, yes. But to be honest, briefly, because when it's like more like a program, working with a person for 8 weeks, yes, a great deal of the work is meditation, contemplation, reflecting on some thoughts, like in the same way as in the Buddhist school, let's say, because a person has time to read, contemplate, and yeah, it's a more sustainable approach. And you can see, I can see changes along 8 weeks. But if it's only 1 session, usually people, of course, they want something, out of the session. They want to feel a particular way, and they already explain the demands. And I feel like if I just give meditation, it wouldn't be like something as well beneficial. So I try to bring some insights from meditation. I always try to invite people here to the center. It's by donation here in Nimatashi. And they are the teachers really in meditation. Whoever has meditated more than 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours. But the beauty of meditation, I think, is accessible to everyone, but you have to do the work.
That's right.
And even if I do meditation during the session, if the person doesn't meditate, that won't help much. So the person has to really, at some point I was miserable, Tracy, as well in my life, suffering like anything. And I just wanted to, like, this suffering can be that this life is full of suffering. And then I found Buddhism, and Buddhism says you don't have to suffer that way. You can be free if you work in your own mind. So that really was the piece of the cake that I want to try. That if I have to work harder, have to study, if I have to pray, I'll do it. So I started doing it. But it requires a lot of work.
Yeah. Repetitive. Yeah. Repetition.
Repetition, study, not only meditation itself as a practice, you have to study the philosophy of meditation, you have to study how we see things as we see. We study that. Levels of consciousness, aggregates, skandhas, how the human mind starts. I see you and I understand the theory behind why I see Tracy as this way and not as a moth. And by studying, then the time, let's say in 1 year, I have a cancer diagnosis, and then I can understand why I relate to my cancer in one particular way, and it's making me miserable. Or I can see my cancer as another, I can relate to as another way and suffer less. So it's in meditation is big. It's not only the practice, that hour practice in the cushion or walking or chanting mantras. It's also the study and also bringing the study into the practice. And then you don't see you don't notice, I think, until something happens, until you lost your job or your most beloved family pass away, or they die, or the doctor diagnosed something, and then immediately something in you falls apart, but doesn't look like it hurts. It looks like liberation. And then you know that you're relating to reality in a more free way.
I love that description. Thank you.
Mm.
Beautiful. How did you come into constellations? When did you first meet it? What was your first experience?
It was in 2013 when I was doing my coaching certification. I was quite young, like 23, I believe. And then was doing my coaching certification just because I wanted to suffer less, not because I wanted to become a coach. And then one friend, very nice friend of mine, she told me, I heard that someone is coming from Spain to do a family constellation workshop. And she told me something, and I said, okay, let's go. I didn't hesitate much, and then I went. It was Joan Garriga, and it's a famous
Who, sorry?
Joan Garriga.
Joanne.
Yeah, Joan Garriga is a very famous facilitator in Spain, and he works in partners. He specializes in partners, family. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, I went, and this workshop was like around 250 people in one auditorium. It was massive. And of course, only like in a workshop of 1 day, maybe 8 people constellate, like we know, right? Whoever raised a hand, and then the facilitator, in this case, Joan, was like, okay, you. Anyways, he said, like, who wants to work? And I raised my hand, and then he said, okay, you work. So I was in the hot seat in front of all these people I didn't know, and I never done constellation in my life. And then he looked at me. He's very, very peculiar, because he look at you for minutes, doesn't speak. And then he said something like, why are you so mad at your mother? And then that really hit. And I started crying. Without saying anything, he told me, choose one person for your mother, choose one for you. I put them, and then they start the constellation. And the constellation lasted like 20 minutes, was very fast. But I felt like there was a hole in my chest. Something happened there. And he was precise. He doesn't speak much. And after that, I said, I need to learn how to do this. I mean, no way, I need to learn. And that's how I started. Just because of me, I realized that there was so much stuff that I didn't process, and I was, playing nice, like, oh yeah, my life is good. But
Yeah.
it wasn't.
So that is quite a different approach, isn't it? Rather than, so he kind of found what it was that you were going to work with rather than you putting that in there. Is that correct? Wow, that's a different approach.
Yeah.
Well, not one that I have seen anyway. Usually you, the client or the person seeker would have something that they wanted to work with.
Yeah. Well, Joan, also my teacher in Chile, they work pretty much in the same way. They look at you, I would say that they feel, they feel what you bring into your, I don't know, aura or something, and then they just go through.
Yeah.
Mm.
And have you ever done that? Have you practiced that in your work, or you're more traditional in your approach there?
Mm.
So, for example, for myself, I find that I usually don't work with someone unless they've got something hot, active. And I guess that sometimes, like that approach, right? If you're going into that approach and if it's active, but you just don't realize it's active, maybe it's sitting there, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm a mix of everything. Sometimes people come and they just want to share, and that's completely their space, and I can feel that there is some important things that need to be shared before the person starts to like settle and unpacking the real, if we can say, the real issue. But other times the person, there is something that is quite evident, and then I just contemplate for a while and see and take my time. And I know it's not easy to digest this silence in the session. And then sometimes I just do it. And sometimes, yeah, I mean, depends, depends on how the space is held.
Do you have any examples or memorable cases that you would feel comfortable to share, obviously without divulging anyone's confidentiality, or because I know the listeners and the viewers are always interested in hearing a little bit more about constellations, and examples are such a good, or even something, even one of your own, if that was something that you wanted to share, or not, that's all right as well.
Yeah, I had, well, a little bit of everything. Sometimes people come to see me to ask for what is the right thing to do, and whether it's like, should I divorce, or should I don't know, stop paying for that, like. And then I try to let the person know that it's impossible for me to provide an answer, because I only have one version of what the person is telling me. But rather I try to talk to the person, what's the real problem. And what I mean by real is, what is the where this suffering is coming from my inability, for instance, of relating to make a decision, because I'm living with a partner that I don't love, but I don't feel attracted, but I receive financial means and I feel financially stable. And I don't want to divorce because I feel like I will be really scared of being by myself. And what if I don't find anyone in the future? I think the person comes with a real ask. I want to know if I should separate. But
I
then,
want you to tell me what to do.
yeah, but then for me, that's quite revealing, because the person little by little starts articulating where is the pain. The pain is in my, let's say, my inability to realize that I don't have any profession and I need to depend financially from my partner. And then I need to stay with him because of that. And once the person articulates that, then maybe there's an opportunity or a possibility that opens about, okay, maybe I'll study now, maybe I know how to sew, or I know how to cook, and I'll start looking for something I can do by myself and not depend 100% on my partner, but only when the person can actually say it, you know. It's like when a person, I usually bring this to the session as well. If the alcoholic does not realize it's alcoholic, there is no treatment. But when the person says, I'm alcoholic, then there is maybe one chance that can be healed. And that's kind of pretty much what I find quite often in whether I can tell the right decision, what to say to, how to proceed in a conflict. Should I just continue with my life or take care of my mom? It seems like, very difficult for someone to elaborate on that. But I take them to really look at, for instance, if one person is doesn't want to make the decision on taking care of mom or living his own life, then, at some point, be honest and say, look, I don't want to take care of my mom because she was not a good mom for me. And just saying that brings space to something different.
Yeah, that allows a breath out, a bit of expansion, right? Yeah, I'm finding that more and more. The more you just speak what's there, right? Because if you hold on to it, right, it becomes heavy. It's quite dense, and it's also contraction. And just being able to speak it allows, obviously, you're clearing some space. And even if there's no action upon it, as far as if you were to say, for example, like you were just saying about, looking after your mum, I don't want to look after mum, then being able to say that, speak my truth. Yes, she wasn't a good mum, whatever that is for that person. And then from there, they can find a more of a balanced platform, right, to start from or to move towards. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the problem perhaps is that we are so judgmental with ourselves. And sometimes we find this non-judgmental in a person, in a friend, in a family member, but it really has to start with us looking at, okay, Natalia, if I were this person, why I feel so angry that I have to take care of someone that, gave me life, because whatever reason, I'm resentful, I'm full of anger, she did that, or whatever. And just be with that uncomfortable feeling. And I think that's the other part of what we were talking about meditation, being with what it is as it is without manipulating. Oh yeah, but she gave me life, I should be a good dog. But I should feel the other way. It's like, just be for a moment without trying to grasp or elaborate, just be. And it's incredible how much, if we try to practice just be with what it is, then how this informs our life. And then little by little we start living life. Doesn't mean that we don't make decisions, but we see things more clearly.
It just allows us maybe to even let go of some of those threads that we've held on to for such a long time, right? And rewrite some of that story, some of those childhood wounds, and even in a way, when we can speak the truth, it allows us to step aside. This is my experience, allows us to step aside and to be able to see from another angle. And even sometimes, if we're so, I used to say it's my Scottish roots that I'm stubborn, it's my Scottish roots, but stepping aside from that and being able to see others' perspectives, I think, in it as well. Probably a little bit off the trail of what you were saying, but that's where it landed for me.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that in constellation, The work of a facilitator, how I see the work of a facilitator in a session has a knowledge related component of about the technique, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's one thing. But then another important component is this non-judgmental field that vibrates in very invisible way. And in Buddhism, we talk about all this stuff, energies, vibrations, blah. So if, let's say that the facilitator has this skill and have worked enough within themselves to, as you mentioned, non-judgmental, then there might be some like resonance that is when the person in front is also talking, then it might be a possibility that the person realizes, yeah, this is happening to me and there is nothing I should blame and I can blame. And that brings ease and harmony. So that's, I would say that great part of the work is the family constellation approach, then the maturity of the client or the person at that particular moment, but then the facilitator energy, vibration, and I'd say the mind capacity to hold what we talk, right, in sessions, holding the space. And then once the space is closed, I always tell people, now is the family constellation is where it starts. Because now you're out and that's it. I mean, ideally the person opens in family constellation, there is so much in, and then once it's off, then the person feels an instant relief, but hopefully it will, permeate weeks of work, and that can influence that person's mind day by day, and then can start building more things. So it's a magic. It's very, it's very hard to explain, but that's how I feel it works in a way.
When you're doing one-on-ones, so I've got these vinyl discs, mat things that I get people to stand on, or sometimes we just use objects around the room, particularly if I'm doing a one-on-one online. They haven't got any vinyl discs, so I'll just invite them to choose anything that they have, and that's going to be our representative. What do you use? Do you have anything in particular?
Well, I use same objects, and I use tissues, like what you call it, like those footprints. I've seen footprints, but I use this so people come and step on those tissues. Also, when it's online, I take the person to create a family constellation kind of diagram in their own minds, and then they have a book, and then they diagram, and from that I take that diagram into my space, recreate that here. Sometimes I have my own board as well, so I show them and they choose different objects. Depends on how things are.
Yeah, there's so many different ways we can do it, That's the fascinating thing about this work.
Yeah, sometimes I felt as well that there is no need to use objects.
That's why. That's the beauty of the work, right? So unique, so different. And it would never be, it's not like a set, how would you call it? Like a set framework that you do this step, this step, this step, this step. It's about, it's unique to each individual that comes. And we have a framework that we work with in the larger system, and from that we pull what is needed for them at the time, rather than saying you have to go A, B, C, D, E to get to the point that you're wanting to get to. Whereas in constellations, it's more like, we'll just start here and we'll see what unfolds. And we can take this step or we can take this step, and we'll just see what unfolds.
Yeah, I think if you ask me, like, I was thinking about what you asked, different scenarios when people come and see me, must be because of also the person who I am. People usually come because, I don't know, I had a person that she had a diagnosis and she didn't want to take medicines because she felt like she wanted to just be natural, let's say. And it's funny because I'm a pharmacist. So it's like, and I usually try to see, and I've been also exploring, I think, quite a lot of time in alternative approaches such as family constellations or coaching or things that work with the way we interpret reality. But at the same time, I have a formal background in using substances to relieve symptoms, not really to cure, but to help the person to regain balance and harmony. So it's like the world for me is quite separated. But what I try to do when I see people is to bring those together.
Yeah.
By, let's say, the person has a diagnosis or even depression and they don't want to take the pills because of pharmaceuticals and they are bad and whatever, and there is a conspiracy, whatever they want to say. But for me, it's like, what is the reason behind this thinking, and why reading and investigating enough, of course, but why not to allow the body to regain certain stability, whether it's in a cancer diagnosis or whatever. And then once the body has regulated enough, then you can be completely natural. But sometimes it takes a lot of time the body to regulate to a certain level so it can keep, healing. So it's very black and white what it comes to me. And
Yeah.
seems like, okay, not all the medicines are bad, but they help. But the other extreme, that only believing that only medicines will cure, that's also a problem, because we are not just our symptoms, we are also our spirit or soul or whatever the person believes. And then our mind, how we interpret our education, parents, traumas, and the traumas are in our body, in our psyche. It's not one thing or the other. It's both or many.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And finding that balance, right? If you lean too much one way, it's not always good for you. Finding the balance of moderation of all things in life.
Yeah. I think that's a right word. I like that word, like moderation and modulation, like regulation, like, and that really depends on the person and how much can we really navigate different streams, naturopathy, let's say, or allopathy, and family constellation, knowing and really checking, is this helping me? If yes,
Yeah.
yes, keep going. But if not, then okay, I need to question that because it's not helping, and then look until you find, like, right, this is making me feel better.
I agree with you. If someone wanted to get hold of you and book a session with you, how would they find you?
So if you put my name, Natalia Bullon, in Google, you'll find Natalia Bullon Constellations and Meditation, and they can book the session online. And I have to split my life between my academic sciencey life and family constellation. So I always have sessions available, but they are limited. And then I do family constellations workshops every month, every 2 months, depending on how much time available I have, to be honest. But you can find everything online. There is a lot of, I used to, create a lot of content online. I'm bombarding social media with that. Not anymore. I don't have much time, but yeah. And if the person feels that I want to, I always recommend talk to me beforehand and maybe get to know me, come to a session, see how it works. And maybe I'm not the person for you. Maybe you must go with Tracy or with Joe because you feel, more safe in a way. And the person has to do what the person feels like safer to open up in a way.
Beautiful. Absolutely. And you've got one coming up So
Yes, I do have on the 12th of April Family Constellation workshop that's in English, and then on the 26th in Spanish, and then on that's in April. Then I have one in May, but I just opened it because I'm gonna open a Family Constellation workshops on dreams. You know that
ooh,
we always have repetitive dreams, and well, I don't know everyone, but I do, and they have a meaning, and why not to bring them in do our work in Family Constellations to get to know what it means.
wow. When's that?
But that's in Spanish. That's the
Uh, Oh, so
last.
I've got like a month to learn Spanish.
No, but I can repeat it. I mean, I usually I talk Spanish, so people come to me
Yeah.
mostly because they speak Spanish. Imagine that you have to talk about all this in another language is very
Mm,
difficult.
mm.
It's a lot of work. So people come to me because they speak Spanish. But some people usually like, when are you gonna do in English? And then I open every now and then in English. But this one, I'll see how it goes. And if things go well, maybe in June I open one in English.
So is that based around like what? So you would put the dream in as the parts of that's fascinating, Natalia. I love that. Yeah, I met a guy once who when in his training, his teacher had said that they had to come up with an idea for an exercise and to lead into constellations. And he said, choose your favorite movie. What's the movie that really stands out to you and why? What were the characters and why? I know. And that was really fascinating because I did we had a little play with it and him and I, and it was like, wow, what came from that? There's only a couple of characters. He said, like, for example, one of the people in his class had really loved the movie Black Beauty. Why? Oh, because there was a horse and it was all about freedom and this young teenage girl and so it was really. And who do you feel like you are in that? Oh, well, I was a bit of her and I was a bit of the horse, and so like the whole thing came out. So I'm really interested to know a bit more about the dreams. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I might open one. I usually open like general, like you do or Joe as well, like Family Constellation workshop, right? So anyone comes with their own subject. But lately, I've been having a lot of repetitive dreams, and then I thought like, definitely, I kind of know what they might mean, but I'm interested. Like, okay, let's see
Mm.
what it's all about.
I
And
used to dream a lot, and I haven't a lot recently. Oh, there's a couple of things that I used to dream repetitively, but one of them was being in a multi-storied house with lots and lots and lots of rooms, and I was always looking for a safe space for myself and my sister. That whenever I found a house that was thing, I could bring my sister in and find room for her and her children, and it was really fascinating. And I have an idea what that's from, but that was a repetitive dream. And then used to have toilet dreams. Those were other ones. It was like I just letting go of lots of shit.
wow, that what you said about the multi-story place really give me goosebumps. Yeah, that would be nice. Nice to see how it shows. I had a dream. One of them is that I'm in a train and I'm not driving. There is one driver, and we are gonna hit like the end of the road, and it's gonna be split into ways. And then he says, which way do you want to take, and which path? And he says something about that way, something about the other way. Which one would you choose? And I see I'm approximating the end, and we're gonna hit, and I'm unable to decide. And so that really is like every time I wake up, it's like, oh my God, I'm feeling so anxious. And then another dream has to do with like I mean, it's gonna sound very gross, but in the toilet, inability to hold things. And that anxiety, like shame and everything that comes with that episode is like unbearable. And I wake up like, oh my God, it's so powerful, that inability to hold it. That
Mm.
and yeah, so that's one of two of many, really.
I wonder how many listeners have toilet dreams, because I was just saying I have toilet dreams as well. And often it's like going in there and overflowing. Like there's just so much stuff to let go of. And then finding toilets in the oddest places. It just feels like feels like it's an analogy for letting go of the layers and stuff. So it would be fascinating. So if you're listening to this, could you please comment, or if you feel comfortable, we'd love to know. Just let us know. Yep, you have them as well. You don't have to go into detail, but just for curiosity, how many other people have toilet dreams? Because I actually thought I was probably the only one. And yeah, so good to know that you
No,
do too. Yeah.
no, and they are very intense.
Because it's not the sort of thing you talk about, right, with your friends. How are you? Yeah, God, I had another toilet dream. Oh, Lord, did you? Yeah. Funny. All right. Oh, I look forward to hearing about that. And will you share it with me so I can share it on my pages as well?
Yeah, thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, I love sharing other people's stuff. I think it's really important. I think there's so much of this work is needed. And, I am so busy doing lots of other things as well, that sharing it so that other people can find their way to the facilitator that works for them. So
Yeah, I mean, I really, really admire so much work that you've done with along all the team in the Constellation Intensive, and getting together, because that really boosts all for everyone,
mm,
and for everyone that wants to do family constellation work, but also to us that we do random stuff all over
yeah,
the place. So absolutely grateful for even this, the time you take. I used to do like podcasts in the past, but just talking myself, that which is easier, right? But then you have to edit, and then you have to put in social media. There's a lot of work, and definitely tremendously grateful for sharing. I think sharing your skills.
thank you. Yeah, I was doing a lot on my own, but now I've got some team support as well, which is really helpful. It gets a lot more done because sometimes my head gets a bit busy. Maybe that's why I have so many toilet dreams. I'm letting go of some stuff. Um, I need to meditate a bit more. Anyway, thank you so much, because I know that you're a busy person as well, and you do amazing things in this world. So really grateful for you to take this time, and look forward to seeing what else is possible to be created, and what else you've got to share coming up.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
everyone listening this podcast, and wishing you all the best for everything that comes in your future.
Beautiful. Thank you for listening. Head over to Instagram and tell me what's resonated for you with this episode. You'll find me at tracy.cartwright. That's Tracy with no E. .cartwright, or head over to my website, tracycartwright.co.nz, and receive a free audio with the gift from your ancestors. So until next time, be kind to yourself and have fun doing it.